get it. Amen. Amen. Y'all, I just want to say welcome. Welcome to everyone. We are here as promised. It is the Reverend Dr. Sherry L. Brown Jackson that we are presenting first tonight. And I, first of all, just want to say thank you all for just tuning in. I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, Dr. Margaret, so the soon to be Dr. Margaret, so she can do our introduction for this concept for tonight, and then we're going to be presenting to some and introducing to others the Reverend Dr. Sherry L. Brown Jackson.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for my background. I really have pieces of me that want to say that, but we had difficulty with my internet working on the inside, so I had to come outside. But I want to thank everybody for coming to this brainchild of Pastor Terrace and I. This is This is the first installment of 12 live Bible studies that will happen this summer. That will be working through decolonizing and deconstructing the text. From the lens of trauma-informed care. So what that really means is that we're going to take the Eurocentric view, we're going to take the oppressive view away from it. We're going to take if it's in the word, that's what it is. And we're going to take another deep dive with critical eyes as co-conspirators together so that we can see the text in a way that is going to reduce harm. So we're looking for harm reduction. In that, we're also looking for a way to bless our souls and seeing the text differently. God is still speaking. And I think it's hard for us to realize that God is still speaking and that we are living epistles and we are walking through our own pieces of the text because if living epistles, we are living letters, which means we are pieces of the text and we are going to come from the context of the Bible. We're going to use the biblical text in the context of how it was written and how can we make that life applicable. And tonight we have none other. Terrace is going to do the formal introduction based upon what's going on with my internet, but I can't do anything but shout out my sister, Dr. Sherry. And I love it. I keep saying doctor. I've been saying doctor for a long time, but doctor. Y'all, this is one of the best, if not, in my opinion, one of the best homileticians in the world. And not only that, but she is so committed to reducing harm with biblical text. That is her thing. That was a big focus of her D-Man project and of her work. She is a published best-selling author. Y'all have no idea how big that is to be on this platform. We are honored to have her. I'm gonna move out the way so Terrace can do this formal introduction because y'all see she got this wonderful piece of work behind her. So y'all better, I told y'all, have paper, have pen, have notes. This is interactive. So after she is done teaching, we're going to give you some time to ask questions. Please ask questions. You have an expert sitting in front of you. Please ask questions. If there's something up, because this is some new material. Some of y'all there's nothing new under the sun. It's the Bible. Now, this is some new ways of seeing, some new ways of looking, and we hope that you can open your eyes. And critical doesn't mean that you're tearing down the text. I want to be clear about deconstruction. Dr. Pamela Lysa said it best. We're not trying to tear up the text. This thing is sacred to us. But what we are saying is, how can I see this and make it applicable to myself, to society, and to life overall? And so I'm going to pass it over to Terrace. Terrace, again, is going to do the formal introduction. Thank you all for coming to the very first installment of what we're doing. This is all things in common. Thank y'all so much for participating. Terrace, I'm going to give it over to you.
Now, I'm not sure if Terrace is here because her screen is black.
So, okay, I see it. I see that it is. So this is the thing. I did my introduction of Dr. Sherry. It's Warren. I mean that thing. This is my friend.
Here
so
she
Terrace
is.
is here. She can. But I know we're having technical difficulties. And I want to make sure that people are able to see it and participate. So, Dr. Sherry, if you're ready, we don't want to prolong it. And we want our stuff to work. Oh, Terrace is here. Hey, Terrace. Yeah. Okay. So Terrace is here. She's going to do the introduction. Dr. Sherry, I want you to take it away and do your thing.
All right, y'all. Like I said, Queen Terrace, Pastor Terrace, Reverend Terrace here. And we just want to thank you to All Things in Common, where healthy and holy conversations is having collaborating experience with Sex in the Church podcast, and we are offering to you top scholars from all over the country, reducing harm, increasing good, and here we have on tonight, the Reverend Dr. Sherry L. Brown Jackson. She is a native of Hammond, Louisiana, and a resident of New Orleans, Louisiana. She's a member of United Fellowship Full Gospel Baptist Church under the leadership of Bishop-elect Brandon Booten. Reverend Jackson is a retired journalist of 20 years with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1987 from Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond, Louisiana, a Master of Education in 2003 from the University of Wisconsin, and a Master of Divinity from United Theological Seminary in 2016, and a Doctor of Ministry degree from United Theological Seminary in 2024. Reverend Jackson preached her first sermon in May of 2003 in Racine, Wisconsin, under the leadership of Reverend Melvin D. Hargrove. In 2008, she was ordained at St. Matthew Baptist Church with the blessing of an ordination council led by Dr. Joe S. Green. She also serves as a board certified chaplain with a specialization in hospice and palliative care from the Southeast Louisiana Veterans Healthcare System in New Orleans, Louisiana. Reverend Jackson published her first book, Not Built to Break, in 2016. Dr. Sherry is affectionately called the Preacher's Coach, whose goal is to help women in ministry by helping them to discover, accept, and master their call to preach. She is the chief academician of the Preachers Academy and helps women to clarify their calling, give credence to their voices, and develop confidence in their intellect. She is a 3-time Amazon best-selling author of the book Sermon Prep Made Easy: 6 Steps Every Preacher Should Take Before Reaching the Pulpit. Silent Not Me: Reimagining the Biblical Text That Keeps Women Out of the Pulpit and Evolving. 20 Years of Preaching and Passionately Disrupting Patriarchy. In May 2024, Reverend Sherry became Dr. Sherry through United Theological Seminary with a dissertation focus, Preaching Women Matter, Overcoming Patriarchy and Establishing Models That Affirm Preaching Women in Alexandria, Louisiana, and beyond. With all of that being said, she simply calls herself a little country preacher girl from the 800 block of Mooney Avenue. And without further ado, I turn this right over to Dr. Sherry.
Thank you so much, Reverend Margaret and Reverend Terrace, for this opportunity to share, to say my Easter speech tonight and do this work, to do the work that my soul must have, and that is to alleviate hurtful and harmful theology. And so thank you again for allowing me to do this. And I want to begin tonight. So I want to use all of my time. Right? I want to use my time wisely tonight to begin this 12-week series, right? And I want to set the tone by simply saying that content out of context equals malpractice in the pulpit. Content out of context equals malpractice in the pulpit, theological malpractice. And so tonight, I do not want to be charged with theological malpractice. And so we are going to look at this text, Genesis 38. Genesis 38, about a story involving a woman called Tamar. Now, this is not Tamar Braxton. This is not Tamar, David's daughter who was raped, but this was Tamar in Genesis 38, who was devalued, disgraced, and marginalized simply because she was a woman. And so tonight, I just want to say, doing what a woman's got to do. Doing what a woman's got to do to save herself and her family. And so that's what we want to focus on tonight. So I want to this is how this is going to go tonight, an overview of Genesis 38. And to keep this in context, we're going to have to do the entire chapter. When you take scripture out of context, when you pull one verse out of its setting, then we have the propensity to cause hurt and harm that was never intended from the text. So we're going to use all of this, and I'm going to divide this into 3 sections: the context, the con, and the care. The context, we're going to talk about the story. Then we're going to talk about the con, which is the trauma that's in this text, and then the care. How do we care for those who have been harmed or who will experience similar harm in the way that Tamar did? Now, somewhere tonight, you ought to see yourselves in this text. Now, it's good to talk about what happened in Bethlehem, and it's good to talk about what happened in Samaria, but until we can make it make sense to us that's living in this 21st century, then it's all in vain. So we want to start with looking at this story, and I want you to hear it. I want you to hear. So we're going to take our time and listen to Genesis 38. So hopefully you can hear it, and please give me a thumbs up or put in the comment section that you can hear. And I'm reading from the I'm not reading, but we're going to listen to the NIV version. I really wanted the NRSV as opposed to the King James. Did not want the King James, but I could not find the NRSV in audio. So we're going to listen to this story through the NIV, and please put in the comment section whether you can hear it or not.
Chapter 38. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. There Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her and lay with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, who was named She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kesed that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan,
"Lie with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law, to produce offspring for your brother."
But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he lay with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep it from producing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar,
"Live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up."
For he thought,
"He may die too, just like his brothers."
So Tamar went to live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira the Adullamite went with him. When Tamar was told,
"Your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep,"
she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the roadside and said,
"Come now, let me sleep with you."
And what will you give me to sleep with you? She asked.
I'll send you a young goat from my flock, he said.
Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it? She asked. He said,
What pledge should I give you?
Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand, she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adullamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman, but he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there,
Where is the shrine prostitute who was beside the road at Enaim?
There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here.
they said. So he went back to Judah and said,
I didn't find her. Besides, the men who live there said, There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here.
Then Judah said,
Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her.
About 3 months later, Judah was told,
Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant.
Judah said,
Bring her out and have her burned to death.
As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law.
I am pregnant by the man who owns these,
She said, and she added,
See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are.
Judah recognized them and said,
She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah.
and he did not sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said,
This one came out first.
But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she said,
So, this is how you have broken out.
and he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was given the name Zerah.
All right. So there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of people's names, a lot going on in this story. And so I want to start by looking at the characters. Now, when we look at biblical characters, it's important to understand that these were people who were rooted in a world, right? These are people who were rooted in a world that is vastly different from the 21st century world. These are people who are rooted in a culture, who has customs, their communication, it was all different. So we run the risk of hurtful and harmful theology and theological malpractice when we don't put in consideration the customs, the culture, the characters, and the communication. So let us look at these characters. First, there is Judah. Now, Judah is one of the 12 from Jacob. Now, we do know that Jacob had children by multiple women. So Judah is the son of Jacob and Leah. Judah decides to leave the family compound and strike out on his own. Now, this particular story is in, if you know, Genesis is basically divided into two sections. That's Genesis 1 through 11 and then 12 through 50. So this particular story, Genesis 38, is right in the middle of it, kind of like disrupts the Joseph story, the Joseph saga, right? And so Judah leaves the family. He leaves the family and he strikes out on his own. He goes looking for and he finds a wife without consulting God or his father. Now remember, the rule was that they were not supposed to marry outside of the family. But Judah goes outside of the family and he marries a woman that we don't even have the privilege of knowing her name. She is simply identified as Shur's daughter, which means that she is only as good as her father is. I need us to understand this culture. She is only as good as her father is. Her father is a Canaanite. Her father is a Canaanite, which was not a part of the line that any of Jacob's children should have been mingling with, right? So she is a Canaanite, and we don't even have the privilege of being able to understand what her name means because she is not named. She is necessary, but she's not named because there could not be these sons without this woman. So we know that the daddy's name means opulence or cry for help. That's very important right there as we're talking about trauma-informed care and looking at these stories. We have to understand that the woman, the daughter, is not named, though she is necessary. She's necessary. So they have 3 sons. The first one was he's the first son, and his name means watcher. Now you have heard in the story that for whatever reason, he did not do right in God's sight. We don't know what he did, but he didn't do right. And so God took him out. God took him out. Now, he's the first son, but true to the Genesis saga, the first son should get the inheritance, but he doesn't. For whatever reason, whatever he did, he was taken out and he would not live to get the inheritance. Now, it's also important to know that he is the first one to marry, but because he married, but he did not leave a son. Now, mind you, he didn't leave no children, but the fact that he didn't leave a son is real problematic, and that's going to come into play as we go further into this story, right? Whatever reason, he did not do right, and God took him out. Then there is the next son, Onan. He's the second son. Now, we're going to talk about this here, but I just want you to know that when died, Onan had to marry the daughter, had to marry wife. And we're going to see that she is Tamar. But he refused to fulfill his duty of bringing forth a child, and particularly a male child, for not himself, but his brother. And we're going to see that according to the text, according to the biblical text, he ejaculated on the ground. He did his business. He got what he wanted. He got what he wanted, what he needed, but he did not give Tamar, the woman, what she wanted or needed. I think that's very important for us to understand tonight. Then there is the baby boy. So the first two sons are deceased. The first two sons are deceased, right? Then there's a third son who needs to fulfill the duty. But according to the story, according to the biblical text, Judah decides he's not going to allow his son to marry Tamar. He says he's too young. But my feeling is that he's scared. Now, his two sons are already gone. So what is going to happen if this baby boy marries? So what happens is that Judah reneges on the promise to have this boy to marry Tamar. We're gonna get to it. Can I tell y'all, I love this story. I love this story. So then there is Tamar. She's Judah's daughter-in-law. It's important to understand she's an outsider. She is not in Judah's family line. She is not in the Israel's line. She is an outsider. She is powerless. She is powerless. And to make matters worse, she is a widower and she has no children. Now, I know in this 21st century, we independent women, we like to say that, I don't need a man. I don't need a man. Well, that is not Tamar's testimony. Tamar needed a man. Her life depended on her having a man. She is sent back to her father's house. She is sent back to her father's house, disgraced. She has no child. She has no husband, and she has to go back home. And we all know ain't nothing worse than having to go back home to your daddy's house. Her life depended on it. She is banished to her father's house. Judah does not even care for her until this baby boy grows up. He sends her back home. She's powerless. She's a widower. She's disgraced. She's neglected. And she's a social outcast. Because we all know that women who could not bring forth children for their husbands so that he could have a name were considered the problem. Nobody ever considered, well, maybe she wasn't the problem. It could have been him that had the problem. And then, well, Sharon, why do you bring up Jesus? Why is Jesus a character? We didn't read Jesus in Genesis 38. That's for my hoop at the end. That's for my clothes. That's for my clothes at the end. So let us keep going. I need to, so Sherry, you keep talking about that, these, you keep talking about these, she was married to this person, and that, what is all of that? That ain't biblical marriage. Now listen, I need to say this, I need to interject this, that for all of those who want a biblical marriage, this is a biblical marriage. I just gotta throw this in right now. There are about 8 kinds of marriages that you can find in the scripture, and a majority of them have nothing to do with love. I'm gonna let that sit right there. A majority of the marriages in the scripture have nothing to do with love. They are transactions. They are treated as property. Oh, Reverend Margaret, let me just step to the side before I talk about this. That when in the marriage vows that we have co-opted and brought to the 21st century, who gives this woman to this man? You see, it was a transaction. The reason why I don't know why we say it now, but there was an exchange of property. I'm gonna give you land for my daughter. I'm gonna give you cows and horses and all of this for my daughter. That's why it is a property exchange. It's transactional. What's love got to do with it? Not very much. In these kinds of marriages. So the kind that we find in Genesis 38, a Levirate marriage, it is first established in Deuteronomy 25:5, and I'm not going to read that. But what it basically says that if the husband dies without a son, then the brother must marry the wife. Now, here's the kicker. The baby, and hopefully it's a boy, that comes along, the offspring, does not belong to the man whose seed it comes from. It goes back to the first son. And the idea was so that the first husband's line could be preserved and he would have legacy. He would have legacy. But for the widow, it also protected the childless widow. It also, because see, her life depended on it. Her life depended on having a husband, and then it's not so bad that she didn't have a husband, but it was bad that she didn't have a child, because a widow, and I'm just wondering if this is reason why Jesus pushed the fact of take care of the widows and the orphans. That she needed to be protected, because a widow, there was no alimony checks, there was no pension checks, there were no government checks, right? So her having a son protected her. So this is why they had this law. Now, here's the thing. The second son, Onan, who went in her, but refused, who went in her, but came out of her without leaving the seed in her, he pulled out his seed on the ground because he did not want the responsibility of raising and having a son that he would be responsible for, but it would not be his. You see, if the brother refused to perform this duty, there was a way out. And that's according to Deuteronomy 25:7. Is this good? Am I talking good tonight? Because I'm feeling it. Am I talking good tonight? If the brothers refuse, then the woman would have to go to the city gate, because the city gate is kind of like where the elders were, where the elders were. She went to the city gate, and she had to report to the elders that the brothers refused to carry out their duty. The elders would then call the brothers to them, and if the brother says, I will not marry her, then there was a ceremony called the removed sandal. And this is where the widow, the woman, would loosen up or remove the brother-in-law's shoes, spit in front of his face, and say, so shall be done to a man who refuses to build up his brother's house. This would be a symbolic act to free the widow to then go and marry whoever she wants. You see, the debt is stacked up against the woman because it was all about protecting the man's line. She was necessary. She was necessary to the story. And so, yeah, even though it was about the man's line, it was about, if you look at it from a positive perspective, it served to protect the widows and their children from poverty, from being dependent economically and regarded as possessions, right? It served to preserve the survival of a clan. This is why this is put in place. The widow of the deceased brother would then be able to bring forth a child, and that child would preserve the family name, but would also take care of the widow. So that's the story. That's the context. That's the context of this story. So where does this story go left? Where does it go left? Where is the con? Where is the trauma? Well, we've talked about it. She is a widower and she is childless. She's a widower and she is childless. Which brings about, there's already a stigma of not having a child. There's a stigma of being a widower. Onan did his business in her, but refused to place his seed in her. He ejaculated on the ground. He got what he wanted and needed, but he did not give her what she needed. Not so much what she wanted. You see, this wasn't about no pleasure contract. But this was strictly about bringing forth a child to preserve the male's name. Where is the trauma? Where is how she's a widow, she's a child, she has to go back to her dad. She is disgraced in society and also her family. She's disgraced, she's hurt, she's humiliated, and she is embarrassed. Now, how do I know that preacher ain't in the text? Well, number one, she's human. She's human. See, these are real people who live with real emotions under the human condition. Judah lies to her. How many times in our congregations that are comprised of at least 75% women who come week after week, giving their last, but they've been mistreated. They've been dehumanized. They have been demeaned. They have been humiliated. They have been hurt. They have been sad by the promise of somebody who said what they would and would not do. Right there, week after week. They are trying to figure out how they're going to live from day to day. And we are acting as if they're not sitting in front of us. That's the con. That's the con. So I don't know if you have heard this or not, that when a woman's fed up, that when she finally comes to herself, there ain't nothing you could tell her. When she finally comes to herself, and for Tamar, it's in verse 14, when it says, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and she had not been given to him as a wife. When it come to her that she had been lied to, when it came to her that Judah was playing in her face, when it come to her that Judah was trying to make a fool of her, when there ain't nothing that you could tell a woman, a black woman, when she come to her senses. I don't care how many other times somebody has told her what she ought to do. Well, child, if I were you, well, let me tell you something. When she gets that in her own mind, I'm going to say this, forget all the degrees I got, ain't nothing you can do with her. So she says, I got to do something. I have to do something. And true to my Baptist bringing and my Baptist sensibilities, I got three major points to this lesson tonight, and they all start with A's. When she came to herself, what is it that she did? What is it that she did? How is she going to, because everybody who her life, everybody who was over her life, all the men had used her up and had mistreated her and did all of these things. So she has nothing to lose now. And I just believe she was angry. I just believe she was at that point that she was ready to slash some tires. You know about that slashing tire. I just believe that she had gotten to that point when she realized that the boy was now grown and Judah had not done what he said he was going to do. I'm almost finished. The first thing she did was she acknowledged her situation. She assessed her situation. And I believe that if we're going to if we're going to get what's due us, We've got to first call a thing a thing. She acknowledged the situation. She put a name on it. She called a thing. It was time for her to speak up for herself, because everybody else who was speaking for her was really only taking care of themselves. And she knows that if she was going to survive, if she was going to make it, she had to do something. So she acknowledged her situation, that she's a woman, that she's a widow, and she's childless. And by doing that, she was really assessing her social and economic condition. She was a social disgrace, and she was economically bankrupt. The loss of a husband was a social and economic tragedy. Widows found themselves living marginal existence in extreme poverty. In this condition, as a widow and childish, she did not have a future. She did not have a future. She is treated cruelly by She is abused by Onan. She is rejected and dishonored by Judah, and she is a widow, and she is childless. She's in a desperate situation, and she acknowledged it. But it was one thing. It's one thing to acknowledge it and call it what it is and just say, okay, this is it. This is what's causing me problems. This is what's causing me pain. She had to activate a plan. She had to activate a plan. She took some extreme measures as a means of survival. And her plan was risky. But what does she have to lose? She has nothing to lose. She's already been tossed around. She's already been, some people have already calling her names. So I just imagine she's saying, listen, I got to get this under control. She's back at her father's house, waiting on Judah to send the boy, and he doesn't. But then, the wife, Judah's wife died. Remember, we don't know her name. Shua's daughter, she dies, and there was this mourning period. There was this mourning period that was that they had a mourning period, and then when that period of mourning was over with, the friend, they will go up to what they will call a sheep shearers. The sheep shearers would go up to an elaborate festival with a whole lot of food and drink, and they were partying, and I just have Mardi Gras in my mind. I just got Mardi Gras in my mind. And so Judah has finished his mourning, and his boys say, come on, let us go up and to the sheep shearing party festival. And this is when Tamar says, this is when Tamar says, I got to do something. I got to do something. Now, when we talk about what she did, I need for us to think in our own minds about a time we had to do something that we didn't want to do, that went against the church teaching, that went against our own morals, that went against what we deemed to be right, because we needed to survive. We needed to take care of the children. We needed to put food on the table. So what she does is she dresses herself up. She dresses herself up. Now, Margaret, y'all have to tell me when my time is up, because I need to finish the text. She dresses herself up like a prostitute, and I need us to really see that. She dresses herself up like a prostitute, and she sets herself on the side of the road and waits for Judah and the boys to pass by. Now, let me just say this, because remember, we're talking about different culture, different customs. Being a prostitute was very common in Israel. It was not necessarily illegal at the time of this story, but it was considered disgraceful. It was considered disgraceful. Now, we're talking about trauma. We're talking about this woman securing her future. So she sets up dressed like a prostitute, and she covers her face when he passes by, because they coming. He's traveling with his friend Hira. And sure enough, Judah sees her, and the biblical text says, went into her, he had sex with her. But she asked this question: what will you give me? What you gonna give me for this transaction? What you gonna give me for this? For being able to come into me? What are you gonna give me? You see, at this point, she really takes her power back. At this point, she's really speaking up for herself. She's doing what she's got to do to secure her future. Now, you may not have done anything like this, but you've done something. I don't care if it's putting your electric bill in your sister's name. I don't care if it's no more than you selling your food stamps. You have done something to take care of yourself and your family. And even though she has no children now, what she's doing is securing a future for her children. So she says, what you got? And he says, well, he offers her a goat, and that's reasonable, I guess. Judah says, okay, a goat. But then she says, well, I'll take your goat, but only if you give a pledge until you send it. What kind of pledge? she says, I need something with your name on it. I need something with your name. I need something. Now she not saying this, but she's saying it. I need something with your name on it. I need your signet. I need your something that will I need your identification card. You see, the signet or the seal attached to a cord typically worn around the neck was used in business to seal a document with one's signature, right? The staff was an item that represented authority. So this pledge that she asked for is asking for one's driver's license and credit card. He doesn't go back and forth. There ain't no bartering. The text says, so he gave them to her. He had sex with her and she conceived. After that, Tamar got up, went her way. She takes off the harlot's veil, puts her widow's clothes back on, because she understood that it was a business transaction, nothing more. Ain't no love involved, ain't no feelings involved, ain't no pleasure involved. It is strictly a business transaction. This is risky. The third thing is she's ready to accept the consequences, because if found out, she could die. If found out, she could die. As the story continues, the kid, Judah sends the goat for the payment, and the person was to bring back from Tamar, or at least the prostitute was to bring back Judah's identification. But when the man gets there to get it, he can't find her. He cannot find her. So he has to go back and tell Judah, I ain't found nobody like that. I can't see no prostitute. I can't see no woman that you're talking about. Can't find her. But later on, Judah gets word. That Tamar is pregnant and he is ready to kill her. He's ready. He has every right to stone her according to the law, because technically she's still engaged to the baby boy. She's still engaged. She's had to put herself in a position to do something that went against her morals, her mental, that could cause her mental and emotional trauma in itself. And I just need to ask, has there been a time when you've had to do something, whether you stayed in a relationship too long because you had no other way to survive? you knew the relationship was not good to you. I want you to think about how it affected you spiritually, emotionally, mentally. That's why we cannot say, we're talking about trauma-informed care. We cannot say, if I was you, I wouldn't. Would look like to me, she would not be doing this. He would not be doing that. Look like to me, I thought he was a Christian. I thought she was a Christian. We cannot hold people hostage based upon life's decisions that they had to make just because it does not stand up to your standard of holiness. You don't know why they had to do what they had to do. You do not know why she stayed. You don't know why she ended up in the situation that she's in. It said that she acted like a prostitute, but she wasn't a prostitute. She really was a strategic planner. She was a strategic planner. But she could face death now because she is technically married to the baby boy. And so when they come back and they said that she's pregnant, Judah sends for her. He sends for her. He's ready to take her down. He ordered her to be put to death because she brought shame to his family. Now, nothing was said about him going with the prostitute, but he wants to put her to shame, to death, for bringing shame on the family. She was a widow, but she was technically married to the boy. His encounter with a prostitute was not sinful, but her acting like a prostitute was worthy of cruel death. We don't have to look at Tamar's story to know that there are some who want other people to die because of what they did, but we want grace and mercy for our best. Tamar knew she was powerless against Judah, so she was ready to accept the consequences, and she was brought out to be burned to death. She sent word to Judah saying, before you put me to death, that I want to show you what I got. I want to show you that the baby's daddy, this his stuff. This is stuff. I want to show you that the owner of the staff, the cord, and the ring belongs to the baby daddy. And so when Judah got these items, the same Judah who wanted to kill Tamar flipped the script. Instead of burning her to death, he declared her righteous. He declared her righteous, saying that, look, this woman is more honorable than I am. So what is the care involved here? What is the care involved here? And I'm almost finished here tonight. The care is that God, that Judah declared her righteous and saying that this woman has not done anything wrong. Yes, she had a baby by a man who wasn't her husband, but she was declared righteous because she did not call Judah out for his mess. And then she had secured the bag by being pregnant. Instead of accusing Judah, she just saying, look, here, before you take me out, before you kill me, before you burn me, I need you to take this stuff because this belongs to the baby daddy. She was declared righteous, and God declared her righteous. And what I need to say, when we encounter people, especially women who are dealing with the trauma of doing some things that goes against what she knows and what she considers to be right, we need to handle her with grace. We need to handle her with care. And because she did what she did what she had to do. She got the son. She got the child. In fact, God doubled her blessings. Good God. God doubled her blessings, because not only did she get a child, but she was blessed with twins. She was strategic in what she did because she understood that her life depended on it, that it was a means of survival. And God did not punish her. God did not kill her. God did not throw her away. God declared her righteous and doubled her blessings. Men may have misused her and abused her, but God recognized her worth and her value. This is a great picture of grace. This is a great picture of grace. She's pregnant not with one, but she's pregnant with twins. And the twins that she would have, Perez and Zerah, are the ancestors of David. And the third thing that God did is that God documented her story for her descendants who would change the world. God documented her story so that her descendants, those who would come after her, would know what she did to save the family and to save the nation. You see, if you go to Genesis, if you go to Genesis 1, what you will find out is, Matthew 1, what you will find out is that Tamar's name is listed in Jesus' family tree. Tamar's name is listed in Jesus' family tree. Tamar is Jesus' great triple time great grandma. Tamar, the woman who dressed as a prostitute, who took her life in her own hand. She took her power back, not just for her, but to save Judah's family. Tamar is listed. In the family. So if you go to Matthew 1, and you'll find a genealogy of Jesus. I told you I was going to get back to Jesus. Tamar is in the family. Yes, that Tamar who did something that could have altered the course of her life, but she decided to risk her life, not just to save herself, but to save her family. I don't know about you tonight, but I believe that somebody knows what it means to do something, to do what you have to do to survive. She's in the family. She did what she had to do. And unlike many of us who would have thrown her away and says that she was no good for anything, God declared her righteous. What the law says that she should have got, she did not get. God doubled her blessing. And then God documented the story so that her descendants will know about the risk she took to save this family. Tamar, a woman who has done, she did what she had to do. That's all I got. I'm bringing back Pastor Terrace in here tonight. That's all I got tonight.
My God, my God, my God. Honey, listen, you have, oh Lord. Doc, this is an amazing treatment. This is exactly what we needed. I have heard this story preached and taught so many times in ways that I'm just going to say, as a Black woman who has been sexualized and over-sexualized and sexually objectified and all that right there, baby.
Yes.
You have redeemed it. You've redeemed it. This is the first question. There are so many questions, y'all. Let me look. Because there's so many folk that got something to say. But before we get to the questions, I got a couple of questions. So am I clear? Or am I clear when I heard you say that the sister dressed up like a prostitute because that was the only way that she could be seen?
And she knew that he was coming.
Stop. See?
And this wasn't his first time.
You don't went to my second question. You done went to the second question already. You know what? I'm gonna start with 1, 2, 3 because I already see how you're gonna do this. The first question is, she was in fact rode hard and put up wet, correct?
Yes. Your words, yes,
okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And according to the Jewish custom, in which we know Mr. Judah was supposed to be, a standing member of this Jewish custom.
That's right.
He was violating her because I need to break it down for the folks. He was violating her because, just like you said, the relationship was transactional, and the child was the commodity. From the sexual commodification that she was faced to endure, which was normal at that time.
It was normal at that time.
It was the part where you said going home to daddy. That thing took me because it just, as a Black woman, y'all know, you don't want to get no divorce. How does it feel? Even when you done got married, right? I was married now. You done got married, and we in the Black community often see marriage and that sort of thing as a validation, right? This is the ultimate, optimal male validation. So now I's married now, right? And the thought that this woman was rode hard, put up wet, and sent back to her daddy's house, that was a violation. Let's talk a little bit about that being a violation of the Jewish culture.
Well, also now is that Margaret trying to get back in? also what we need to understand now, she ain't going back for comfort, like, oh, I can go back home, like my mom and them said, you can come home and you can't come nowhere else. Well, when coming home, see, the deal had already been made, right? The transaction had been made, whatever they got for her when she married in the family, property, whatever that was, right? She's going back disgraced. She's going back. She ain't going back to be, a debutante, and or anything. She's going back disgraced.
Yes, ma'am. Because that's what I want you to just break that thing down, because this would be the equivalent of, you buying some, how they have perishable goods, and they say you can't bring them back. This one of the ones that you can't bring back.
Yeah, she was soiled.
Oof. And so, second question. Jesus Christ. Second question. The host row. She knew her father-in-law, because this was she know them folks.
Yes.
Knew them folks. She done went. Look, I done been with your first son and he wasn't nothing. I done been with your second son and he wasn't nothing either. And now I'm realizing, just like you said, she came to herself.
She came to herself.
And I would even go so far as to say she is moving from a place of objectification to autonomy. See, this one, yes. As a sexual ethicist, I want to bring in the right and wrong of this thing. Right? I want to highlight the fact that she has been wronged.
She has been.
It was a violation against the Jewish culture.
Yes.
The laws.
That's right.
And further, now it is her father-in-law. She know these folks that he on the whole stroke, because this is what they do. Like you said, it will be the equivalent to in Mardi Gras, or in my city, Pensacola. It's like you walking down Cervantes Street. Everybody knows what they do down there.
Okay.
And so here she is going to the folks that she know what they do.
She know what they do.
And the last point is she dressed up like a prostitute. And I push this. She's dressed up like a prostitute because that was the only way that she could be seen.
And she sat on the side of the road where he had to pass.
Where she had to pass. Because he had to pass. Know what he do.
She was strategic.
Yes.
See, you can't beat a woman, a black woman, especially when she fed up and she get in her mind. You can't beat her.
Yeah, right. That's it.
She'll sit all day and think.
And see, and this is what I like where we're going with this. So here is the sexual wellness, right? Here is the ethical considerations. First, it is a virtue ethics. In virtue ethics is based on morality. It's based on a person's intent and her personal virtue. And we see that the first check mark is she was doing the right thing. And that's why even at the end of the story, like you pointed out, Judah said, you got me.
You got me.
She's more virtuous than me. She's the one that's held the integrity for the family.
She held up the integrity of the family.
Even though she's supposed to be supposed to be outside, but she demonstrated that she was living. She was a living instrument of what the Judaic law was supposed to be.
That's right.
Okay, so now we got a check mark by virtue ethics. The next thing is deontological ethics or formism, which says performing to the duty, or are you doing the duty? Was her duty, because she just like you say, she was married into the family, and now she is in like chattel slavery. I come from my family. We're from Sierra Leone before it was Sierra Leone, but then we went through a breeding plantation.
Okay.
So I was purchased in order to be right. So she's in this situation where it was her duty to produce children. That's why so in her dressing like a prostitute, she fulfilled the duty. Virtue, next virtue, check. We're looking at right and wrong here. Right along. The third thing is consequentialism or utilitarianism.
Okay.
This is the ethical consideration regarding do the ends justify the means? Right? Did the end and like you say, they were the first name listed up there when we talk about in Jesus's lineage, in Jesus's bloodline.
And then next is Rahab.
Okay. So when we talk about the utilitarianism of it, the ends justifying the means, we got a check mark.
Mm-hmm.
The next two is casuistry.
Okay.
Now this means that, or it does this means it handles on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Was it right for her at that time and the people around her considering her particular case?
Yes. And I mean, the culture called for it, right? So now this is the danger of having apples to apples when you try to bring up an ancient Near Eastern or first century Palestine world to the 21st century and say, oh, I'm gonna follow the Bible every line by line and every precept. No, well, okay then.
You have to look at it based on those particular factors.
We're gonna either have a prescripted text or descriptive text. Thou shalt not kill, that's a prescription. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But so you got to be talking. You got to be real careful about. We're gonna bring everything in the Bible. We're gonna bring it to the 21st century.
Yeah.
You ain't ready for it.
You ain't ready for it.
You ain't ready for it. You ain't ready for this kind of biblical marriage.
And see, and that's it. So we got to check next to that one.
Okay.
All right. So the last one I'm gonna bring up, of course, is we say the best for last. This is the womanist ethic.
Okay.
And when I'm seeing a womanist ethic, not only am I looking at relationships, but I'm also looking at the importance of the relationships, not just in family, but nationally, but historically, culturally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it is sound to say that her decision was womanistly ethic. It matched the womanist ethic in terms of pulling things outside of the margins and expanding the parameters of privilege to include everyone.
That's right.
She is operating in a womanist ethic. So if I look at my checklist,
it wasn't just for her.
That's it.
It was for everybody. Everybody was going to benefit. Everybody, we are benefiting
to this day. So from now on, Pastor Preacher, whenever you split your mouth to talk about Tamar, I'm gonna need you to put some respect on her name, okay? Because ethically, what she did not only is lined up with all that it is that we've learned from our Kemetic Judeo-Christian tradition, but it was also with her soul, because she went from being objectified, identifying with her own objectification, to identifying with her own autonomy. You
cannot talk about Jesus without talking about Tamar.
There we go. I need to look at some of these questions. This said Genesis is okay. Let me look some of these questions. Woo, honey, these people on fire down here. It's just somebody's. Ooh, girl. I can't even look. I can't even see all these questions here. It's lots of them. Anybody? I'm trying to
don't see in a particular question.
Yeah, I see a whole lot of amens and yeah. Okay, but if anyone has any questions, we have the scholar on tonight. She just got a few more minutes to break it down, answer any questions. I've asked mine as a sexual ethicist because this is one of my favorite stories.
So let me just say this here. So as a spiritual care provider, as a chaplain, there are many times that I meet people who are dying, right? And they will go back to times when they did things that they did not want to do. Especially veterans, right? There's this thing called moral injury.
Yeah.
Moral injury. When we do things that go against our own ethics, when we do things that go against our own sense of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Our souls are injured. And people live in bondage to think that one thing will will keep them out, right? And so we have to work through that. We have to work through that so that they can die in peace. And so we want to think about how we handle people. This story of Tamar is a beautiful picture of grace.
Yes. Yes.
It's a beautiful picture of grace. So we need to make sure, I know in my own life, there are things that I may have had to do as a means of survival.
Yeah. Yeah.
We always have to, I don't care if it's you had to run your extension cord from your neighbor house to your house in order for you to have heat in the winter.
That was the right thing to do for them kids. Children, excuse me, that was the right thing to do. Yeah, that's one of the ethical principles. Yeah. Formalism. Are you or utilitarianism? Do the ends justify the means?
Yeah.
Yes, all of them. I mean, every ethical consideration, she checks the box.
Yes, and I do see this here that Shan Tawan Park said this teaching also speaks to gender inequality, the economic gap between men and women. Yes. Because her the whole reason to get married, right? I keep trying to tell people, what's love got to do? It ain't got nothing to do with it.
No.
Not in this culture.
Yeah, and today, because I remember 20 years ago, I came home pregnant from from college. Okay? My first thing was to get that male validation and put a ring on it.
And so she had to marry, which was a transaction.
Right.
Who gives this woman to this man? And what you got? What's the transit? What y'all swapping? What you swapping?
Right.
Right. And then she comes in, and her sole purpose is to be a conduit for his heir.
That's it. So she's an object.
She's an object. And so even if when you see all this barrenness that we see, even like in Genesis, the women who are barren, they were scorned.
Yeah.
Because you could not do what
you were about to do. It's like somebody bought a lemon.
That's right.
They're gonna leave it on the side of the road or whatever.
So that's that.
Oh, honey, I just first of all, first and last. Okay.
Let me say this. This is when I talk about the gender inequality and the so the reason why I believe that, we like to call out a whole lot of sins, right? A whole lot of sins.
Right.
Even today in our political climate, if you're a red letter follower, if you are a follower of Jesus, it's got to be about justice and equality.
Yes.
It's got to be about taking care of the least of these. It's got to be taking care of the widows and the orphans. These are the ones who were put outside, could be put outside and on the side begging, and their life, their existence depended on having someone to care for them.
They were the most vulnerable.
And so when they was cheating the woman out the widow, the story of the widow's mite, and they was cheating her out of her money and all of these kind of stuff. That's why Jesus got upset.
Right.
Because you're messing up. I got to stop.
It's inequitable. It was, yeah. So this was amazing. This was
thank you for the privilege.
The aim and our goal is to reduce the harm, to increase sensitivity and understanding of how we can stop church hurting folks with the text. And this was a beautiful story of how this sister started out, Miss No Name, with her highly important. girl, I ain't gonna re-preach you and reteach you, but you already said it. How she went from someone's object to taking agency and full autonomy and becoming a person.
Becoming her person.
So thank you all.
Thank you for the privilege. Reverend Margaret, Pastor Terry, thank y'all for not thinking it robbery to bring this little country girl on to do the work that she loves. And I just want to say that on Monday nights that I do have a 6-week Bible study that we started Monday night, Reclaiming My Name, where we are looking at women who we started out with Eve, because if we can get Eve right, it looked like everything else ought to fall in line. We call these women out of their names. We call them everything, and so we want to help them to reclaim who they are. And so that it is registration. I'm going to put the registration link in the comment section, and also the Preachers Academy. This is being hosted, that it is going to fully launch. It's going to be cohort based. I'm just so excited about it. And it is for, as you said earlier, to help women to become damn good preachers by discovering, accepting, and mastering their call to preach. But the academy is going to help women to clarify their calling, to give credence to their own voices, that they don't have to be anybody else, and to be confident and in their own and confident in their own intellect. So this is going to be a safe, sacred space, a solid, and it's going to be filled with scholarship. Y'all can tell I'm Baptist. I like a little and all of that. But thank you, and follow me, Sherry L. Brown Jackson D-Man. Thank you again, Mark.
My camera messed up. If I would have came on, thank you, Terrence. But Terrence did way better. She went through, because she went through on the ethical roll call, honey. That thing took me out. It was wonderful. Dr. Sherry, if it announce all your stuff, but y'all, the best-selling author, you can find her works on her webpage. You can find her works on Amazon. Again, I still use one of her books where she literally maps out how to write a very sound, very ethical, do no harm sermon. That book is amazing. Y'all need to get that if you preach. She spells it out. Like you can't miss nothing with that book. So, but Dr. Sherry, it's an honor for you to open us up tonight. Listen, I don't even know. I want to say it gets better, but I'm scared if it gets better.
It is going to get better, because my friend Dr. Garland Thompson will be next, and yeah.
And it's Juneteenth.
Don't forget about me when he comes.
You got a brother coming on doing Juneteenth, y'all. I don't know. I want people to be alive at the end of the summer too. Now y'all can't just take everybody out. But this is a beautiful view of what it looks like to decolonize and deconstruct. We didn't destroy the text. Dr. Sherry brought you to Jesus. She showed you the importance of a genealogy tonight. Some of y'all skipped it. Y'all ain't never read one. Listen. Now, I know what I'm saying. I ain't never read the genealogy. Like, we don't need that's not important. Yes, it is. You find out with every little thing.
Everything
we saw tonight the necessity of understanding how ethical it is to walk in what you need to do to get what you need to get done. Like, listen, she brought honor. Yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna rewatch this again and scream.
We have we have it pinned.
We have it pinned. Y'all support Dr. Sherry. The work that these scholars are coming on here doing, they are helping me in my D-Men project. For one, me and Terrence, they're helping us. And two, this is their work. This is their sweat, their blood, their tears. So make the Cash App or the PayPal. I can't see what's there right now because my screen is crazy. But whatever you see there, please, 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 give honor what honor is due. And our currency, I'm quote Dr. Irie Session on this. Our currency is coins.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Be blessed, y'all. May all be well with your day.
Amen. And Ashe.